What's going on, everyone? This is Simon from Netcon, and in today's video I want to walk you guys through an example of how I chart stocks, and hopefully you guys learned something from the way I chart stocks because there's a systematic approach behind this, and I just want to show the entire process without skipping any steps of how I would go about making my watch list, charting stocks, so you guys have a better understanding and hopefully implement some of those things in your trading, and hopefully this gives you some sort of an advantage or you learn something new and have a better understanding of why I do certain things when I chart stocks. So here is my Thinkorswim platform. As you guys can see, I'm using TOS for this. I'm going to be charting on this for you guys. And when I say charting, I mean setting critical levels, support, and resistance for stocks, identifying key supply and demand zones, and just setting levels that are important for certain stocks. Now, first thing I want to do is before I jump into anything is I want to maximize the screen space that I'm working with. I want to make sure that there is as little distraction as possible and I have the most amount of screen space to pretty much chart stocks so I can see things better and clearly. So I want to eliminate my level 2 and time and sales. I want to get rid of this. I want to get rid of my news. I want to get rid of my watch list over here. And I'm also going to get rid of certain indicators that are unnecessary when you're charting. So what I'm going to do is pretty much walk you through the exact same thing I would do. I would pretty much close all my windows and only leave the chart open. As you guys can see, I would close these windows as well. I would drag this, I would make this a single screen right over here. Now, as you guys can see, I already have more screen real estate. And I would also close this. As you guys can see, my chart is now pretty big and I have a lot of space to work with. I'm actually going to open my watch list if it lets me drag this so I can. I guess it's not gonna let me open it, that's fine. Then I'm going to go over here into studies and I'm also going to remove the VWAP, and I'm also going to remove all the indicators that I'm not going to be using, such as the MACD, RSI. The only thing we need for this is our understanding of price action and maybe volume here and there, so I'm going to leave my volume indicator where it is. So as you guys can see, I'm actually going to remove the moving average as well, since it's not going to benefit me. Here I'm using the 21 EMA. This is mainly what I use for when I day trade or scalp. The only thing I'm going to do is add moving averages that we usually like to use for a longer time frame analysis, which would be the 50 and the 200-day simple moving averages. So I'm going to type in simple moving average and then change the values of these to 50. I'm going to make the 50 orange, and I'm going to type in 200 over here, and I'm going to make this one yellow so we have a mutual understanding of these lines. Now we have these two lines. I'm only going to be using them on higher time frames, and then once we get to lower time frames, I'm going to get rid of them. Again, this is just to understand some critical zones that could be watching. So for this particular example, I'm going to take the infamous and our favorite stock, Tesla, and as you guys can see right now, I'm on the 1 day 1 minute chart. What I want to do is head over to the longer time frames, and I'm going to start actually with a 3-year weekly chart. As you guys can see, I'm going to hide the entries and exits because this is unnecessary for us. Now we have a big picture of Tesla over here, guys. And what I want to pretty much do right now is I'm going to clear the chart with the current lines that I have drawn over here. So all I'm going to do is right click and click clear drawing set, and I'm going to get rid of all the lines. So as you guys can see, now we are on a 3-year weekly chart for Tesla, and we don't have any lines. We only have the 2 moving averages here and nothing else. What I want to do is first of all explain we want to always start with a higher time frame. A weekly on a 3-year chart, then a daily chart, and then go on a 4-hour chart, and then move towards the higher time frame. The lower time frame. So you want to go from top down, as we call the top down approach, where we have, let's say, the weekly, then we have the daily, and then we have the hourly chart, and then we have the minute chart. This is what most traders in the industry use, and this is the proper way of charting stocks. You want to always look at the bigger picture first to establish certain zones and levels, and then we want to move to closer time frames. One thing I want to also mention is, as you guys can see, Tesla in the last 3 years on a weekly chart has traded between $35 and $900. This is a very big spread, obviously, and I want to mention one thing. The thing is that Tesla will likely, in the next couple of weeks or days that we're going to be trading it, is not going to come back to the $35 level, even the $200 level, $300 level, and $400 level. Those levels from here up to here are, from here all the way up to around here are pretty much irrelevant, because we're currently over here and price action is trading within these levels over here. So why are we going to waste our time charting anything below this? For practice, maybe, but I'm not going to be setting any levels or anything in particular in this zone, because there's close to zero probability of this coming down very aggressively within a week to these levels right over here. So I'm not going to be charting any of this. So what I'm going to do is click on our arrow and zoom in to more recent data. That's the only data I care about. I don't care about what happened to Tesla under $300, because we're trading at 739 right now. It's not going down to 300 unless something terribly wrong happens. So what I'm going to do here, as you guys can see, I am on the weekly time frame. We're going to use certain tools. We're going to use the joining boxes to define supply and demand zones. We're going to use lines and all that stuff. I'm going to try to walk you guys through in as much detail as possible. So first thing I want to do is I want to set support and resistance levels and zones. I'm going to explain where you want to use zones, where you want to use levels, and what the difference is. So I'm going to use this price level right over here. What the price level does is pretty much lets me draw lines like these. As you guys can see, I just double click and I have a line. This is my resistance line number one. Why am I starting here? Well, as you guys can see, it's around $900 right over here. Every time Tesla on these weekly candles approached this level over here, we got rejected. So obviously there's going to be a line of resistance there, and it's a dashed white line for me. That's on longer yearly and weekly time frames. I use the dashed white line for levels. You can pretty much click here, edit properties, and set your style up if you want it to be dashed, how wide you want it to be, the color, and if you want extensions on and off. So by extensions, I mean whenever you double click, it's going to draw it both to the left and to the right as much as it possibly goes, right? So right now we have this one line at the top, reason being that it is a multiple touch resistance. Let me remove this one right over here. As you guys can see, we have a touch here, touch here, touch here, touch here, touch here, and every single time on a weekly time frame, the stock approached this level, we got rejected, right? So this is a strong level of supply. This is where a lot of selling pressure kicks in. This is where sellers are sitting every time bulls or buyers try to bring the stock up. At this level, sellers reject the price and price goes back down. This is why it's called a level of resistance. It's resisting the price every time it gets there. What else do I see here? Well, I see that over here we have a level of support. As you guys can see, every time stock came around this level of 596, 600, we saw a bounce. As you guys can see, every time on this candle we reached this level, we bounced. We reached this level, we bounced. We reached this level again, and we bounced, right? So this level of 600 becomes a very critical level for us to pay attention to as well. Now we have another level of resistance right over here that I personally see is going to be around 465, 470, around that level, that zone, on the weekly time frame, right? As you guys can see, every time we got here, we got rejected, pulled back, got here, got rejected, consolidated, finally broke through this level, right? So this is 470, this zone right over here is super important, right? What else can I see here? I can also establish trends, because I see that overall this pattern is going up, pulling back, going up, pulling back, going up, pulling back, and overall we're in this kind of uptrend, right? So what I'm going to do also here is take this drawing line and head over to a trend line and try to connect the bottoms. As you guys can see, every time we are making higher lows, as you guys can see, we made a low here, low here, low here, low here, low here, and we're making higher highs. Every time we go higher and higher and higher, and we bounce here again at this low, and maybe based on previous patterns, we can go even higher. So what I'm going to do is simply extend this line like this and connect it. This is our trend line. As you guys can see, we're currently in this long-term uptrend because we're on the weekly long time frame chart, right? What else can we see in here? I also see that every time we got around the $720 level, we got rejected. Right over here is also a level of supply or a level of resistance right over here. Why? Well, let's take a look. We got rejected here, pulled back, finally broke through, retested this level, and then every time the stock hit 714, 720 around this area, look what happened. We tried to break through, we couldn't. We pulled back. We tried to break through, we couldn't. We couldn't again, we couldn't again. It took us around 5 weeks to break through this level. So it indicates that this level right over here is a strong level of resistance, as exactly here, and maybe in the future it will become a level of support where price retests and then possibly bounces. So this is a very important level for us to establish. What else can we see? Well, I can set one more trend. As you guys can see, price has been consolidating within this sort of pennant triangle. There's many patterns that can be spotted here. Number one being this sort of bullish triangle. So this is a bullish pattern where price compresses and we can make predictions on what could happen later. Let's say weeks go by and Tesla gets rejected at 900 again. Test makes another higher low based on our previous patterns, as you guys can see, making higher lows, and then finally tries to break out. This is one possibility that could happen, or we can just get rejected somewhere around here and break this trend and have something like this. This is going to highly depend on overall market conditions, if there's any sort of news that come out. So just that you see this sort of bull flag or a bullish pennant triangle pattern doesn't mean that Tesla has to break out and follow a pattern. Patterns don't mean anything unless price is supported by fundamentals. Fundamentals always drive price. What I mean by that is news catalysts, upgrades and downgrades, and overall market internals are going to determine whether, if we have, let's say Tesla gets upgraded to $1,000 by multiple, analysts, by multiple companies, they see Tesla as a bullish stock, SPY and overall markets start rallying, we have a high probability of this probably breaking out in the near future. But if, let's say, markets start dumping, there's some negative news on Tesla, Elon Musk starts tweeting, this doesn't have to break out. This can very well end up looking something like this and sell off. So just that you see the pattern doesn't mean that it has to follow this pattern. Patterns don't really mean anything unless there's multiple confirmations and things to support this pattern. One last thing I would add on this is something of this sort where we have a pennant, because price has been consolidating within this pennant. As you guys can see, we are making higher lows and lower highs. Now price is being consolidating here, and within the next couple of weeks I want to see what happens at this point of inflection right in here. Whenever we start approaching this level, I want to see this price want to move higher and break out, or does this price start getting rejected and there's not enough buying pressure and we maybe sell off, right? So there's two scenarios. Now this is pretty much my analysis on a weekly chart. After we have completed that and we've established our support and resistance levels, we want to make our way onto a smaller time frame, being the 1 year 1 day chart. As you guys can see, we're on this 1 year 1 day chart. We see our drawings from the previous levels, but now we have more data because 1 week, 1 week is the same as 7 days. So one of those candles pretty much held data for 7 trading days. So now we pretty much get expanded data that we can use to chart yet again. And as you guys can see, we have more data to work with. That means there is more levels we can set. So right off the bat, what do I see? I see that whenever we got rejected here at this very top, price, let's resume this, let's not cancel. Price got rejected and then it came back here to this level and it bounced before going back again, tried to hold here and then broke through and started fading. So what I want to do is pretty much set a level. As you guys can see, at around 785, 786, this is also a level of resistance and support. whenever we came back here, price got tested, we went back up, bounced, tested again, and then support couldn't hold and we broke through. And then as we approached price over here, it got rejected by this level that used to be support and became resistance. So 786, 790, this is also an important critical level that we want to pay attention to. Let's see if there's anything else. Well, we can see that every time price reaches, these zones around, 680, 700, it bounces. Look at this. We have bounces right over here. We have a lot of price consolidation and bounces over here, price trying to hold, then price bounced over here, and then finally held the support. So these levels also become very important levels of supply and demand, and let me draw these right over here. As you guys can see, this level of 655, and again, this is an approximate level of 655, it could be 660, 658, it's never just one exact level because there's always little room for error you want to leave, because everybody charts differently. For me, it could be 655. For another trader, it could be 654. And we're still in a big time frame, so we can't see these levels very specifically yet. So pretty much I want to, again, explain that we want to be focusing our attention on this zone right over here in terms of our levels. Everything that happened here is pretty much irrelevant until our price, which is currently at 739, starts making its way back down to these levels. If it does, then these levels will again become something we pay attention to. Until then, these levels of 134, 200, 300 are absolutely irrelevant and we don't care about them. So we want to only focus on this picture that we see right over here. So these are the levels I pretty much have set. I don't really see anything else that could be support or resistance. Maybe we see one more right over here with two bounces, and pretty much when you're looking for support and resistance, you pretty much want to see how many times the stock price bounced off a certain level. And in this case, we have two. We have one bounce right over here, and then when price went down to this level, it bounced again at around 540. So 540 is a big level of support. Why it is important for us, if let's say Tesla starts selling off and hits this 540 level, we want to see what is going to happen at this level on longer time frames. Is price going to start bouncing and holding, or let's say price is going to break through? And then this is going to help us make certain decisions in our trading. And this is very important to establish. Now that I have established levels on the weekly and daily chart, let me zoom out and show you what my chart looks like. So this is what my chart looks like for Tesla. I have these levels right over here, 882, around 882, around 786, 714, 655, 599 or 600, 540, and 469. So we're in these levels. And then we also have this overall long-term trend, which is an uptrend, right? The red lines, the red dashed lines, and then we have price compression forming this sort of wedge. This is what I see just based on the weekly and yearly time frame. Now we want to move on to the 4-hour chart, and this is going to give us yet again more data, and we can move our levels around to see things more clearly, because now we just get more data from our candles. As we can see, we can zoom in closer and start looking for what is going on with price action. We want to see, is there any levels we missed? Is there any more stuff that's being shown to us? And as you can see, I right off the bat can determine that, hey, every time on a smaller time frame we're reaching levels right over here, we're seeing some sort of bounces, right? Take a look at this. We have a bounce here, we have a bounce here, we have another bounce right over here, we have resistance right over here. So this is technically a very important level for us to pay attention to on a smaller time frame. What I'm going to do is draw a level of support and resistance to capture these levels of around 823. But now I'm going to click on this and edit properties and make this a different color, because now these levels are in smaller time frames and they're not as strong and important as the other levels we have had set. So I'm going to make these levels actually, let's go with blue. These are our 4-hour and smaller time frame levels we have established. They're going to look blue, where actually they look very similar to white. Let's make them red as well. So our trends are red, and our intraday support and resistance level are also going to be red. Everything else, the white lines, those are long-term support and resistance lines, which will pretty much indicate us important levels. So those are very strong levels on bigger time frames that we want to pay attention to as traders, and then the red lines and levels are not as strong because they're in smaller time frames. Now that we're on a 4-hour chart, let's keep looking. As we can see, we set these two levels pretty perfectly, because what happens is price, whenever it gets into the 655 to 714 level, look what happens. We have multiple bounces and it likes to stay within that range. Whenever we get over those levels, we tend to see price compression that was formed over here start making its way to the upside, right? What else do I notice here? I notice that we have the same thing that I pointed out on the bigger time frame. We're making this higher lows, right? And here we're making the lower highs. As you can see, price is making lower highs. So here, what would I expect? I would expect maybe a test of another low, maybe around 655. And again, this is just my predictions. We can see something like this, price pulls back, tests this level, and then bounces, right? Once you're charting, you can see all this data and you can start making hypotheses of what potentially might happen. So now that we are here, I managed to add this one level over here, and we can also see that we have a level of support resistance somewhere around the 750s, because price got rejected here. So I'm also going to add this level onto here, because it is an important level that the stock Tesla struggled around, and I'm going to change the color to red since it's on a lower time frame. As you can see, we couldn't break this level before and finally broke it. Then we came back, started testing this level, broke through it, came back, retested this level and got rejected here, and now we finally broke through this level and came back, and now we're consolidating below this level, right? So in the future, this current week, for example, it can act as a level of resistance for us, right? And we can get rejected and turn back down, or we can break through it, test it as support, and start making higher highs. So this is where these levels start, being important. Other than that, I don't see anything else on a 4-hour chart. So what I'm going to do is move on the 90-day 1-hour chart. This is pretty much going to show us a even smaller picture of everything going on, show us more data and more important levels to potentially look for. And guess what? I see that, let me try to zoom out and change the cursor. I see several things here. I see that our trend is still intact. I see that we're once again making those higher lows right over here. And that we're pretty much respecting the levels that I drew on the higher time frames. The 714 level was really important, as we see with more and more data, more and more touches. We see that 743, 750-ish zone is also very important for stock Tesla. But now we're seeing even more data. Look at this. We have a gap fill right over here. Tesla gap down through this gap. So this becomes a zone that I'm looking for, because gaps tend to fill. They don't have to, but sometimes price tends to fill these. And as you see, we have some sort of rejection of price going off that 762 level. So this becomes also an important level. So I'm going to set 762 as a level that I'm paying attention to. I'm going to change it to red since it's a intraday level. As you see, if we zoom in, level 762 right over here. Let's see where it is. We bounced right over here when we sold off, bounced off that level, and then we gapped through this level below, retested this level as a level of resistance right over here, and then Tesla pretty much started selling off after it retested this level of 767. This is an important level. Then we started seeing price heavily go down. This is why it's again important to have these levels established, so you can see where buyers and sellers are sitting. Other than that, I'm not really seeing anything else on these time frames aside from maybe a smaller uptrend. As you can see, not only do we have these lows connecting and making the uptrend, we also have on a smaller hourly time frame, we're also making higher lows on this stock. This can play very well if we are using support resistance or trends for entries and bounces. As you see, we are trying to bounce here again and maybe head to break that 786 level. So what I'm going to do is just use our trend line and connect these bottoms from 600 to here, and as you see, I'm going to make this drawing and it's already red, so that's perfect. When I zoom out, take a look at this. Absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. Tesla rallies, pulls back, rallies, pulls back, and now we're testing this channel we have drawn again. So maybe we're gonna bounce here, or we might break through it and start trending down. It's important to have these levels established. So now that you see, until Tesla pretty much, now I can start forming my game plan. Until Tesla pretty much starts moving outside of this 743 level, whether it's on the upside, maybe above this previous high, or below this previous low of 730, I'm not really interested in taking trades. It's consolidating here. I want to see what happens in this little empty space between these two levels as price, until it starts breaking out either on the upside or the downside above these levels, there's not going to be any plays. And how a lot of traders get burnt is that they start, they're predicting or anticipating, oh, this is a bullish triangle, Tesla is bouncing here, it's probably going to break out. And then what happens is they hold their contracts, they lose decay due to time decay because Tesla is just consolidating here, and they predicted it would, let's say, go up, but then some sort of news comes out and then the stock dumps. All right, so you want to be patient when you see times like these. You just want to wait it out and see what happens at this point of inflection. Whenever Tesla gets to this point, what's going to happen, right? And see where buyers and sellers start stepping in to see more clear direction. Until you get to this level, pretty much, there's not going to be any trade for Tesla. And now I have all this data and detail to look at. So now that we're on the hourly chart, we finished charting on this time frame. We're going to go on a smaller time frame. I like to use the 15-minute. And now this is going to give us intraday levels to pay attention to. So now we can see, where does Tesla really struggle on these smaller time frames. Well, one level I can see right away is whenever we hit this 730 level multiple times over and over again, the stock tends to bounce. Every time we hit this level, we bounce. And this is important for me, especially if I'm day trading, to see if Tesla, let's say on a Monday, starts selling off and approaches that 730 level. I want to pay attention to 730 and see what happens to the price here. Just that it hits 730, it doesn't mean buy or sell or short the stock. It just brings it to my attention, hey, Tesla is hitting this important level where price tends to do something. What is it going to do this time? And this is where, certain things like looking at level 2, looking at time and sales, reading the tape comes to play to understand who is in control of the stock at the 730 level. Are the bears more aggressive than bulls, and we're going to start selling off? Or is there a lot of bullish sentiment and bulls are trying to hold the price and price starts making its way back up? So I'm going to very well set this level of 730 as a strong level of support. It's actually around 726, 730, and this is where supply and demand zones come in. So let me explain, guys. As you see, over here we bounce at around, let's say 725. Over here we bounce closer to 730. These are different levels. This is because on an intraday chart, stocks don't necessarily hit the exact same support and resistance zones. So for understanding that, I'm going to use this rectangle to draw my supply and demand zones, because support and resistance, guys, is never just one line of, let's say, 728 or 730. It's never one level. It's always a price zone, because you understand, you need to understand how the markets work. Market makers that organize the orders for traders, they see that traders are setting stop losses under critical levels, right? So 730, let's say, is our critical level. A lot of retail traders are going to set stop losses under this level. They're going to put a stop loss at 729, 728, and this is where you see all these wicks come in. This is where the stop losses get taken out by market makers. What this pretty much means is big retail institutions, they take the price, they push it down right below this level, and then they grab shares of retail traders, hit their stop losses, and send the price back up. They accumulate the shares under the stop loss levels, and this becomes your level of supply and demand. So this is, again, what I drew. A box between around 728 to 730 is my level of support that I have set right over here, because we have numerous bounces in that zone. Again, this is not a level, this is a zone right over here, right over here, and right over here. And this is what I'm going to be paying attention to. And the same thing goes here, guys. Look on the upside. We have this resistance. Every time stock hit this level around 743, we got rejected, hit it again, got rejected, went back down and traded in this channel. Then we try to break out of this level of 743, probably hit around 745 here, and then we got rejected again. Now we're trading between we're back down in this channel. So this tells me that every time stock breaks around 745 and approaches the 750 zone, there's a lot of selling pressure, and sellers are sitting there trying to hammer down the price back down to its previous levels. So what I'm going to do is use this box feature and make a box around 745 to 750 zone, indicating it is a zone of supply. Every single time stock comes into these levels, we see rejection, we see sellers step in. This is where sellers are selling their shares and shorting the stock, and this is where buyers are coming in to buy the stock, right? And support and the stop losses are getting taken out at these levels. You can see that by the wicks, right? So now, guess what? We're in a smaller time frame. We have all of our levels pretty much established, and we have these two zones that we're paying attention to as traders, the 730 zone and 750 zone. Now when I'm trading on a smaller time frame, these are the levels I pay attention to. Now that I have my charting established, I would go, let's say, on a 5-minute chart, and now when I'm trading, I have this zoomed in, and what I'm trying to see is how is price going to react when it gets to this zone or a particular level. I'm trying to see, let's say Monday market opens, Tesla opens at 736, and we have a negative catalyst. Let's say Tesla gets a downgrade. Stock, let's say, starts rallying. We hit the zone, right? Now that we're in the zone, I'm paying attention to Tesla because I know that previously around these levels, we have seen a lot of price congestion and a lot of bounces. We have bounced here and we have bounced before once again in the last 15 days. Let's see, we have bounced over here and over here. And now this doesn't mean short the stock. This doesn't mean go long. This just means pay attention to the stock and the price action to determine who is in control. And if I see aggressive selling and we start breaking the 725 zone, for example, now I have a strong play on the downside because I have, let's say the markets are selling off. There is bearish news on Tesla, and price action with levels is suggesting that, hey, 726 is now becoming kind of weak and there is a lot of selling pressure. Sellers are stepping in and hammering this stock down. I want to play the downside when the stock breaks 724. This would be my thesis. Thesis for this trade. Let's say I get into puts the second that I see that the 725 level gives up and buyers are no longer present at this level. I would want to buy puts here, and my risk would be probably towards 730. So if price starts, sells off, tricks us, and starts making its way back to 730, I'd exit for a loss. Or if, as I told you guys, I'm an option scalper, I would want to trade this down to my next levels, which are around 714. So if we break 724, 725 with, let's say, news and catalyst, markets selling off, this is a strong trade on Tesla. I want to see this trade on the downside, and I'd be aiming to take profits at around my next level being 714. I'd probably scale some out at 720 because this is a psychological level, and as you guys can see, we have this 720 bounce right over here as well. So this would probably be my take profit one right over here. Let's take a look, set this line right over here. And then that's 714 level, and then there's nothing else in between. And the same thing applies to the upside. I would probably be aiming for the 760 level right over here. As you guys can see, level of resistance. But again, guys, support and resistance mean nothing unless you're combining it with more things, such as, fundamental analysis, such as upgrades, catalysts, overall market sentiment. If, let's say, the markets are pushing, SPY is hitting all-time highs, there's great news, great momentum on upside for overall stocks, but Tesla is selling off and hitting the 725 level, unless all these factors align on the downside where the markets are selling off and SPY is selling off and there's negative catalysts, I'm not interested in trading Tesla on the downside because it's a low probability trade. I'd be more so looking for a bounce around the zone because all other indicators are suggesting bullish because markets are pushing, there's great sentiment But if, let's say, I have synergy where, let's say, SPY is dumping, SPY is selling off, the Fed came out, told us some bad negative news, and then Tesla, let's say, got downgraded. Elon Musk tweeted saying production numbers are not going to meet, and Tesla is now at around the 725 to 730 zone, and we're seeing weakness. Now this becomes a high probability trade that I want to take. So guys, this is pretty much the way I chart stocks, the way I look at price action, the way I come up with plays. Hopefully this video helped you. This was just one example of how I chart stocks. I'm going to do more of these chartings in the future and obviously discuss these during our Sunday stock talk and charting sessions. But this was, again, just a video to show you how I chart stocks and to give you a detailed explanation of what I look for, how I set trends, how I set levels, and how pretty much my thinking works when I analyze stocks. Because when I was starting out, I really wish somebody would just walk me through their thought process when they're charting, when they're executing, and what goes on inside their head. This is the most important thing, just understanding what goes on inside another trader's mind. Why are they making a certain decision? Why are they getting in short? Why are they buying calls or puts? This is super crucial. And now I have walked you guys through, and hopefully this gives you a better understanding of what to look for when you guys do your own charting. I'm going to be doing more of these examples in the future, but this is it, guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below or in #YourQuestions channel right over here in Discord, and I would love to work with you and help you guys. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video, and hope this helped.